And we did it, and it cost us maybe $100,000 to run all those fatigue tests and show them the results. And we had ALCO on our side. And so they finally accepted it, and we got released to start shipping. And that delayed the program for quite a while. And I was so proud of the fact that I could come up with a way that it turned out as it was, their interference and caused Neil not to get his landing training until just 1 month before he launched, because NASA wanted him to have training at the Cape. And we had run out of money and time and everything else. We couldn't do it, so they had to accept his Ellington Field training, which is just south of Houston, where I had a crew operating.
So the 6 guys that landed on the moon then, did the other 5 have a considerable more training then than Armstrong did?
There was one guy on Apollo 13 that they were glad never had to land.
Red Hayes?
No.
Okay.
I still know and commute with Fred Hayes. He's the same age as I am.
Yeah.
He lives out of Texas. And also with Harrison, Jack Smith, who's a year younger than me.
Yeah.
He lives outside of down in New Mexico. Anyway, the reason I do that is because of my book. I got their inputs, credits in my book. But where was I going with this? The proudest thing was that I was able to get, at least we met the 1 month before he launched to the moon with his final training flights. He had 7 training flights in 2 days.
Wow.
And the 4-star general called Dean Grimm, who was my NASA guy that I reported to. And the 4-star general said, well, did Neil get his last checkout in that bucket of bullets? He called it a bucket of bullets.
Yeah.
And he said, oh yeah.
So was that typical then, that everyone got their training just in just a few days, or did they have a longer period of time?
They had the 2 days. That was all.
No, that's for Neil, but the other astronauts, they had longer.
They had the vehicle. I don't think there was hardly any training done with the other LLTVs. And the reason was, the second LLTV, the human error was the problem on that one. But in my book, I talk about the fact that the product improvement from GE on the engine generator, they made a product improvement, which was they put a new generator in, thinking it was better. It had an unknown failure defect, and it hung on with the magnetic field just a fraction of a second longer, and it caused the emergency bus to never get kicked on. And so it lost. So that was our second LLTV.
But what did the other astronauts train on then?
The one that's in there.
Oh, that first
The one that's I showing you is still in the lobby.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's so famous.
Is that is that number 1 or number 3? Or?
It's number 3.
Okay.
It's the last one that did most of the training. And
So
I think
the last-
somebody said that this one white thing here is a historic. Who was that said that? About that historic white thing, about the maneuvers that Neil had to take. Pitch and roll maneuvers.
Oh, that was the actual landing.
That's the
On the
actual,
moon.
yeah, that's a historic.
So the last 5 then, the trained on the one that's hanging from the ceiling in Houston.
Yeah,
And how many flights would each of them typically get before?
oh, the syllabus, I think maybe, I can't remember, it's in my book.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's spread over how many days, do you think? It wasn't just like 2 or 3 days.
Well, it depended on availability
Yeah.
and where they ranked and determine when they're scheduled to take a flight.
It was more than Neil had.
They had more than they had. But the guy that I was starting to tell you about, Apollo 13 commander,
Right.
during his training, he sort of froze. And they had to talk him down, and everybody was so glad
That he didn't have
that
to
he
land?
didn't have to land, because he was pining because of his experience of using the automatic landing system, which was never used. And we're glad it never had to be.
Will they have a manual landing system now on the, like either SpaceX or the
That's a big,
Blue Origin?
that's a,
debate?
probably no training is, I would doubt if they're gonna get a trainer on anything else.
Or will they have manual override, or is it all going to be completely automatic?
It'll have to be automatic with no manual override.
Well, I suppose, I mean, what was the computer technology back then compared to now? It's like, I think a TI-84 calculator, which is already 25 years old, is like 350 times faster than Apollo computers were. And the Apollo computer could hold like 300 characters of text in its memory, something like that, right? So,
My grandson just graduated from School of Mines and was expert on moon days. I'm glad he's here.
The AGC had 2 landing modes in Apollo. There was program 65, which was the auto land. And that's where Buzz would call out Cartesian coordinates. Remember, you see all the grids in Apollo 13 on the window? So they said that's where you want to be, and you have to imagine that dot, you steer towards it, and then it would correct. That was the auto land, but when they got close, they saw the voltage, whatever, and they never got to 65. They went to 66, which is open loop, and they came down. So what's really amazing about that graph is how they plot their auto land trajectories, and then how they actually fly the vehicle is amazing. But none of them trusted the auto land. I asked Neil that in flight medicine clinic. None of them trusted the auto land.
Do you have any interesting stories on Steve Lindsay by any chance?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Steve is in, today he's vacationing in, where did I say?
Germany.
No. European country. Anyway, his story was that when he was working with John Glenn, who was 90 years old, and his wife, and they were still flying his private airplane. And the thing that stopped him to make him sell his airplane was that he had so much arthritis, he and his wife couldn't get in the cockpit. That was Steve Lindsay about John Glenn.
There's still a couple of those folks in the area that you keep pretty close touch with. You going to church occasionally here?
He and his wife.
Yeah.
Were at church. Yeah. And on picture on my door in my room on the 3rd floor
Mm-hmm.
is a picture of me with my dog Becky. Next to me is Nolan, and next to him is Steve Lindsay.
Who is the space shuttle pilot that was at CU? And then he moved to like Telluride.
Joe Tanner.
Joe Tanner.
No, he was Joe Tanner was a mission specialist that helped repair the Hubble. And he taught the graduate students at CU. And he came to Nolan's school at School of Mines to give a lecture. And Nolan had forgot to tell him that he had been in as a little kid.
Yeah, I hadn't made the connection quite there, and then there was a class late in the evening, and I was feeling not super great, so I dipped out pretty quick. But yeah, I still need to email him back and make that connection.
Yeah, Joe Tanner had come to our house to visit because we had met in his last day at NASA as a mission specialist. And he said, I'm going to go to work for University for CU Aerospace Engineering Department. And they hired him to.
So
He's a
everything
grad
was,
student.
everything was built in Buffalo then, for, assembled there initially, was that correct, for the LLTV and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was the first test flight made there then by Joe Walker, or where did that happen?
First flight of the LLTV was made to Joe Agrani at Ellington Field in Houston. And that's when he ran into the wind shear. And the power plant, a few miles north of where they were flying, had a smokestack at 300 feet, bent and went 90 degrees. And after that flight, and they looked at everything, in my LLRV days, knowing we had limited control authority for any wind, I would launch fishing lines with balloons tied on it, and that was our cheap way of staying safe. After LLTV crashed with Agrani, they brought in a Mobile weather station, and they were part of the checklist that they couldn't fly based on the expensive way to find out where wind shear was. Yeah. So
A little more costly than a balloon and fishing line.
Right.
Well, many pilots use wind shear as an excuse for failed landings. And it's dubious as to whether or not it really was there to make up for the lack of expertise, but if you have a tower that goes 90 degrees over, you've got some pretty good confirmation there.
Well, didn't that late accident
Yeah.
where it flipped a fence, remember?
I don't,
Just
sir.
a month or so ago?
Say that again?